Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to this Facebook Live on the topic of pregnancy, motherhood, and facial pain. Tonight, I'm so thrilled to have with me Allie Kubik and Jody Irwin, who are both members of the facial pain community and have graciously and bravely offered to share their stories. This is our first time doing Facebook Live with Zoom. So I am going to try to toggle back and forth between talking with Allie and Jody and also looking at your questions and fielding those for you. So please, if you have a question, feel free to type it, and then I will hopefully be able to find those and send those to Allie and Jody. So just a few quick announcements before we get started. Our next webinar is going to be on Wednesday, June 30th, and that is on the topic of upper cervical chiropractic with Dr. Larry R. Beitman and our very own Ann Simnecki. And then on Wednesday, July 21st, that's at 7 p.m. and both of these are. This 7:21, that one is on anxiety and facial pain with Dr. Lisa Scott Morrow, who is a big fan favorite of everybody around FPA. So we're really excited and thrilled to have her return. So without any further, one more thing. As you know, the Facial Pain Association is a nonprofit and we appreciate your support. So please consider making a donation to the FPA. You can go to our brand new website that is launching this week, and that is facepain.org, and help us to ensure that we can continue to provide these free programs for you. So now, without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Allie Kubik. Allie, we would love to hear a little bit about you and your story with facial pain, and then sort of how it fits into your beginning of planning a family.
Right. Thank you so much, Allison, for having me. I'm so excited for this opportunity. As Allison said, my name is Allie Kubik. I serve on the board of directors for the Facial Pain Association, and I am a patient. I've had facial pain, bilateral facial pain, since I was 13 years old. Through the years, I've had multiple different surgeries and medications, alternative treatments, you name it, I've probably tried it. My last surgery was 11 years ago, so that is a huge stride for me. And I currently am not pain-free, but I'm so much better than I was. And I am on a just low dose of medication. And just 4.5 months ago, I had my first child. So that is why I'm here. And I really hope that we can give some moms and dads and grandparents some extra hope and courage to take that step and start a family, because I know that when I was first diagnosed, I thought all these bad things, and one of those being I'm never going to be able to have kids. And as a girl, that's something you look forward to. So I really hope that we can give some people hope and some information to empower yourself so you can start that next chapter. So I'll turn it over to you, Jody.
Hi, my name's Jody. I've had occipital and trigeminal neuralgia for 16 years. I've been in remission for 3, mostly pain-free, not completely, for 3 years from pregnancy and breastfeeding hormones. My pain was all caused by a car accident. I was the passenger in a car that was rear-ended on the highway in 2005. So let's see, I lost a whole lot over the last 16 years. I was just in a 6-year relationship at the time and lost that to the pains and my job and my house, pretty much everything. But now, let's see, for the last 10 years, I was pretty much debilitated from the occipital neuralgia and the shooting, stabbing, electrical shocks, trigeminal neuralgia, pain. And that I met my now husband 3 years ago. We were dating at the time, long distance, if you can call that dating. I've tried numerous medications. I was never a candidate for surgery. And been to, several doctors and surgeons. Anyways, long story short, 3 years ago, I decreased off all my medications to do medical marijuana because my neurologist and I were at wit's end with what could possibly work. And it was actually going to be my second time. The first time I found it did help me the most. Luckily, it was high CBD and low THC. Anyways, the second time I decreased off all my meds, and the day before I flew to Colorado to start the medical marijuana, I found out I was pregnant, and I went into pretty much remission. The pain slowly dissipated when I was 5 months pregnant. So I was very scared. The pregnancy was unplanned. I was 40 years old, so it was all a shock. And so now I have 2 children, and I've been almost pain-free for 3 years. That's the short version.
Awesome. I'm sitting here just trying to make sure. It says we're live, so I'm trying to find it on my phone. So I'm trying to refresh the page on my phone. So I apologize. That's why I'm looking down just to see. But I believe we're live. It says we're live. So I don't know. If somebody wants to send us a chat or send us a message on Facebook and let us know that you can see it, that would be awesome. All right. So obviously, both of you having had facial pain before you had your families, there's got to be a lot that you had to consider that somebody without facial pain would not even have to think of. I mean, goodness knows there's plenty to think about for every woman and for every family. But for you guys, it's definitely a whole other level of planning and consideration and that kind of thing. So Allie, tell me a little bit about your planning for pregnancy. Like, what were your main, let's just jump in. Like, what were your main fears, worries, concerns?
So to start, at that time, I scared my pain management doctor. It was like I got married, and my next appointment with him, I was like, so about starting a family. And he was like, oh, I knew this day was going to come, jokingly, because I'd been with him 15 years. He'd been my doctor. So he'd watched me grow up. And so jokingly, not in a bad way. So we talked about it, and there were absolutely some medications that I could not be on. So I had to work on getting off of those and maybe going down on one and then going up on another. But he also had me go consult with a high-risk doctor, high-risk OBGYN, in conjunction with my regular OB. So before I even knew I was pregnant, it was actually 3 years before I got pregnant, I went in for a consult, and they just kind of laid it out there, what I could expect, and what it would look like, and what their role would be along the journey.
And what about you, Jody? Did you have as much planning time?
I just, with having such horrific pain for so many years, I just thought I could never have children. And so I decreased off my meds. And like I said, literally the day before I started medical marijuana, I found out I was pregnant, and I was very scared. And the first thing I did was call my doctors. I was still on a couple low dose medications, and they were like, well, we have to get you off these first. And then, but I was with a high risk doctors the whole way through.
Yeah. And what about, so can we talk a little bit more in depth about medication and changes to your actual healthcare plan for while you were pregnant, Allie? What was the plan?
So there was one medication I had to get off of. And then I stayed on everything else. I was on 3 medications. So then I went down to 2. I stayed on those medications the entire pregnancy. And it was fine. I did have what I call an attack. I call attacks. At no point did I ever need to go to the emergency room, which was something that I was so grateful for, because that was in the plan. What am I going to do if, God forbid, because essentially with me, I will probably about once a year get a really bad flare that will send me to the ER. Where I need to get medication. So we had a plan for that. What is it going to be? And when I say we, it was the high risk OB in conjunction with my pain management doctor, or if maybe you're not seeing a pain management doctor, maybe it's your neurologist, but don't rely on your OB to be like, hey, get this medication. If you have severe pain, you need to go in and say, can I have this medication? So we had that written out if I needed to go to the ER, and we broke it down by trimester, because first trimester, certain things weren't safe. Second trimester, things were safe. And then third trimester, again, things weren't safe. So it's not, again, it's not like, hey, I'm just going to go have a baby and it's nice and easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you definitely can't wing it, is what I hear you saying. And I also hear you saying that you really need to advocate for yourself, and not only advocate, it's like you were being proactive. You were almost in some ways educating your OB, like, here's what I normally take.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I would like to do even. Is that okay? Does that work? Right?
Yeah. I actually had my high risk OB talk with my pain management doctor. I just requested that because I'm like, look, not everybody knows facial pain. So, and if you're an OB, chances of you seeing a facial pain patient more than once in your career, probably slim to none. So they did not compare, but my OB would say, oh, we've treated someone with seizures, because sometimes anti-seizure medications or MS were somewhat similar. But again, I really push for advocating and having your doctors communicate, and even having some sort of written plan.
Yeah. Did you, Jody, have any experience with trying to get your facial pain doctor, your neurologist, or another doctor to communicate with your OB?
Yes. My first pregnancy, I actually, I went to the Laugh Your Face Off fundraiser. And so I saw some of the doctors there, and that was real early on in my first pregnancy. And I was able to talk to them. And then that's when I found out that some women go into remission when they're pregnant or breastfeeding. And so I just prayed really hard for that. And like, miraculously for me, when I was, like I said, when I was 5 months pregnant, I went to remission. But I did have my neurologist write a letter to my OBGYN, just explaining my situation and talking about like what meds I could possibly be on if need be.
Great. Allie, are you getting messages about the live event? I got a few saying we're live, and I got a few saying that we're frozen. So I'm hoping people refresh their pages, and that should do it. But if I'm saying this to people whose pages are frozen, they're not going to know. Are you getting any messages?
I am, just that the video hadn't started yet. So
I still have a video, hasn't started yet.
Yeah. So I don't know. There's nothing else to do because it says it's live. So
and you know what? It will be recorded, and
it will be recorded. So yes, so we don't have to worry about it anymore. And then Jody, did we talk about medications for you specifically and how you had to adjust those for being pregnant?
Like I said, I had decreased off most of my medications
Right.
Before I knew I was pregnant, because I was going to start the medical marijuana.
Right. And then when you were pregnant, did your pain change?
Yeah. So first pregnancy, it was a long for 4 months. The first 4 months were very long because my doctors didn't want me to be on anything. And I was in a lot of pain and having a lot of attacks. But it slowly started to dissipate, maybe like month 3 through 5. And like, I remember in June of 2018, like, because it dissipated so slowly, realizing that, oh my gosh, I'm almost completely pain-free. And it continued. My anxiety was through the roof because I hadn't experienced being pain-free in 13 years. So
it almost made you more anxious that your pain had gone away.
yeah, it still does to this day. It's only been 3 years and I only knew how to live in debilitating pain. And so, yeah.
Did they attribute that to just the hormones of being pregnant, or was there any explanation for why in that time frame? And then Allie, I'm going to ask the same of you. Did your pain change over the course of time while you were pregnant?
Just that it, quote, must be the pregnancy hormones. I did start emailing Dr. Casey, and he said the same thing, just that the increase in hormones caused you to be pain-free. And so there's that. And then when I nursed my daughter until she's 2.5, till she was 2, but when she was 18 months old, because I was nursing her very infrequently, I started to have attacks again. And then I got pregnant, not intentionally, but, because we wanted to have more kids. So my pain started to subside again.
And did it follow that same pattern, sort of months 1 through or up to 4, you had pain and then it subsided like after that?
It never got to the point that it was at prior to ever being pregnant, the insane pain. So it dissipated, but it's interesting because I had my daughter first and then my son. And I could almost say I was completely pain-free with my daughter because I think the estrogen hormones were doubled. And then this with my son, my pain, I still had the constant stabbing in my temple. I still do. But it was there pretty much on and off the whole pregnancy.
That's so interesting that with a girl, you felt like your pain was less than with a boy.
I think it's the double estrogen hormones.
Allie, what about you? Did you have any pattern of your pain changing while you were pregnant? During pregnancy, my pain, I feel like, is a roller coaster. Some days, depending on stress, depending on triggers, whatever it may be. I definitely felt like it kind of continued to be a roller coaster all throughout pregnancy. I definitely, when morning sickness was at its best, that triggered my pain a little bit more, but nothing. Not during pregnancy. I was never pain-free. After, when we could talk about that later in this session, but after I did get some, I don't want to say remission, but really, really low levels of pain, which was super exciting. And did the triggers or the roller coaster pattern change at all? Did you find you had new triggers or some of the normal triggers weren't happening? It was probably pretty much the same triggers. I had a little bit more pain. My pain is primarily in my ears. I definitely had more pain in my forehead than I normally would. So and that could just be facial pain, it has a mind of its own. So it could have been that, or it could have been the pregnancy. Jody, how often I'm assuming you saw your neurologist while you were pregnant. That might be a wrong assumption, but did you have a plan, and how often did you see your neurologist or other facial pain specialist while you were pregnant?
I saw I was actually living in Iowa at the time, and all my doctors are in the Chicagoland area. But I came back to see them. I saw them every 3 months. They were accessible to me by phone whenever I needed them to be. So.
And Allie, did you have a special plan to see the neurologist more frequently while you were pregnant?
No, I didn't actually have to see him anymore. I did coordinate. I talked with my pain management doctor and my surgeon as well throughout the pregnancy, just to kind of keep them both in the loop. When it got towards the end, it was hey, SOS, make sure you have like you are available to answer calls, because I don't want to be like, in the hospital and have them have no idea. And if they need to call someone who's my treating doctor, please answer.
Jody, how were you set up for like a support system with family or friends for, I think now I'm talking more about birth, like preparing for birth and then immediate right after. And I know with your second child, I'm sure you need to arrange, some help for your older child. So how were you set for that, and how did you structure things? I mean, every new parents have to do that. Maybe your situation was a little bit different given that you weren't sure how your facial pain was going to go, and therefore compound like your need for certain help.
Actually, it was a lot of discussion between my now husband and I, because I was living 500 miles away, and that's really far. If I over the 16 years of insanity, as I call it, if it wasn't for my family and my siblings, I wouldn't be here today. So after a lot of discussion, like I told him that I have to live in this area, because if it comes back, I need that support physically and mentally. And so when my daughter was 11 months old, we moved back to the Chicagoland area to be closer to the people that I know could physically and mentally support me.
So you didn't really have the family right there when you had her, but you did when you had your son.
Yes.
Yeah. And how was that difference? Like, how did that impact things for you? Like, during, right when you were having your baby, and then right after?
I think it was a world difference. I don't think I definitely could not have done it by myself in Iowa. I needed to have them, not just to decrease the anxiety. I mean, it definitely does some of it. But I still have severe neck injuries, so I'm not entirely pain-free. I have a lot of limitations as to things I can do around the house. I can take care of my children, without issue, but, just labor intensive things around the house, I still need help with.
And Allie, same question for you. What was your support plan for giving birth and then for afterwards? I know your mom's a nurse, right? And so I know that with Corona, there was like that whole extra factor and everything. So what was your plan?
Yeah. So
what was your plan, and then how did it actually play out? I'm curious.
Yeah.
So I have learned something as a first-time mom. I'm a very type A personality, and I always like to have a plan. And I'm learning that having kids, your plan goes out that window pretty fast. So it's making me a more flexible person. So what was the plan?
Well, so you had family around. I know you had your husband around and your mom around, but did you plan on? I mean, I think every person does, every woman does, right? You have a plan. You have a plan for how the birth's going to go. That goes out the window. You have a plan for who's going to be there, who's not going to be there. But you had the added challenge of Corona. And I think, Jody, you did too. I can't remember how old you. So you all had that. So really, what plan could have stuck with any of that, right?
Yeah, the plan went out the window. I had definitely had hopes of, okay, maybe by the time I'm ready to give birth, COVID restrictions will have lifted and people will be able to, come to the hospital. But unfortunately, no one was able to be there. It was just my husband, I was thankful, because there were some hospitals in our area that prior to earlier during the COVID pandemic, support partners weren't able to be there. And I can't even imagine that.
Yeah.
So I was just extremely thankful that my husband was able to be there. And it was a blessing in disguise that we were able to, have that time in the hospital, just the three of us. Yeah, plans, they go out the window.
Yeah. So I'm going to go back a minute because we had this question I did not ask, and I think it's would be helpful to hear your answers. Did you need to have additional blood work or ultrasounds or any other tests because either of your facial pain concerns or because of the medication they needed to check? So Jody, I'm going to ask you that one first.
Additional blood work or
ultrasounds or any additional tests that you wouldn't have had to have perhaps?
No, I didn't, but I did with my neurologist. We did my blood levels when I was completely pain-free with my daughter, so that hopefully when I need it again in the future, they can say, okay, these are your hormone levels. Can we get them there artificially? I don't think they can, but in case there's a possibility.
That's very interesting. So they thought about, let's just do this sort of to see what we could possibly glean from it. And
well, I came up with that because just brainstorming, nobody can give me an answer, and I'm not going to say I'm not scared to death. So that's one of my, let's try this.
Yeah.
I'd actually said that I think I said it to my husband, like, oh, I wonder if they could do that, but they can. That's so exciting.
Yes. Right. And can they, I mean, I also, I know what I did with my son. I had my, what's it called? Cord blood registry. I saved the cord blood. I wish I had done that with my daughter, but I didn't. I did cord blood registry. I'm sorry, I forgot about that. In hopes that if they can come up with a cure or help with stem cell, I have the stem cells from the pregnancy. I don't know, because
yeah,
I've been in touch with anyone that can give me these answers.
Yeah, who knows? And what about you, Allie? Did you have any like extra ultrasounds or?
Yeah. So just because of one of the medications I was on Lyrica, was the medication that was the concern. It is a relatively new drug in the world of pharmaceuticals, so there isn't that many studies, and there are obviously no human studies. There's only animal studies. So they did do extra ultrasounds, which was a blessing in disguise, because my husband was not able to come to any of the ultrasounds in the regular OB's office, but at the high risk OB, my husband was able to come to see those ultrasounds. Don't ask me why, same hospital system, but different rules. But yes, I did have, I had extra growth scans to check to make sure the baby was growing proportionally. And I did not have any extra blood work done, but they just definitely did extra ultrasounds. So.
And let's dive into a sensitive question. So labor. I mean, both of you have been in labor and both of you have had facial pain while in labor, but you don't know any other experience. So I guess the only way I can kind of ask this was, how was your facial pain during labor?
Allie, I'm interested in.
So I had a really, really concrete plan. And Jody actually gave me this idea to come into and Allison, I promise I will answer the question, but I think this is really important for people to know. So when you go into the hospital, have a plan actually written out of, these are my triggers, these are my medications. I had this is my primary care doctor, this is my every doctor I could possibly need. I did find that the triggers, having the paper with the triggers on it, was super important, because they'll try and feed you ice chips, because if you can't have anything, and for me personally, ice and cold is not good. And the one resident came in and joking was like, okay, no ice chips. And I was like, no, seriously, no ice chips. But my pain during labor was normal, I would say. I'd be lying to myself if I wasn't terrified that with every step of the labor process that, you know, it was going to just come out of the blue, and I was going to have to deal with both labor pain and facial pain. And then I was going to, you know, have a brand new baby and be in such severe pain that I couldn't even remember, or I so much fear. But luckily my pain stayed status quo during labor and even after. So.
What about you, Jody?
So as I say, I haven't had any pain in 3 years. My pain did come back with my daughter. My occipital neuralgia came back while I was in labor. So, you know, they're like, oh, I wanted to do it without any pain medications. But they're like, you know, you'll have the contractions, then you'll have a break. Well, you don't get a break when you have the shooting, stabbing, electrical shocks at the base of your skull every time your heart beats, and then the contractions on top of it. And so I did get an epidural when I was dilated to like an 8, but then they turned it back down for me to push. So through the whole pushing, I was experiencing the horrible attacks of occipital neuralgia and giving birth at the exact same time for 3 hours. And it went on for 12 hours. It dissipated and went away after 12 hours.
So it went away. Did you take anything at that point for that?
No, it was talked about to start an anti-seizure medication. I can't remember which one. But I'm very stubborn. Maybe you have to have that personality with this disease. And I just suck it up and see how we're going to do. And after 12 hours, it dissipated. And then with my son, my water broke. I was in labor. And my trigeminal and occipital neuralgia came back for 5 hours, and they wanted to induce me, and I pushed them off because of the experience I had with my daughter, and I was scared to death. And I was like, this baby's not coming out of me. And my husband sat me down and he was like, this baby has to come out of you. So we got to come up with a plan. Like, I had a plan in place and it's not going to work. And anyways, it dissipated after 5 or 6 hours, and then I allowed them to induce me. So that was.
Did either of you consider having a C-section to avoid labor?
It was talked about with me, but I didn't want that. And as Jody said, your facial pain makes you stubborn. So I went in with the mindset of, I'm not going to, as long as it's safe for me and it's safe for the baby, I'm not going to have a C-section. But
what about you, Jody?
Yes. So I went with my daughter. I'm over 40, so I was high risk all the way. Anyways, and the C-section, sorry. I was told with my daughter that I was going to end up having to have a C-section. But then my water broke and I didn't. And then with my son, they told me it was too big, and they told me I had to have a C-section, and I fought them all the way because it was important to me. Because my other thought, and maybe Allie, you feel the same way, is I've been in that insane hellacious pain, and I don't want 6 weeks of it from a C-section.
Yeah, I not that a C-section is bad, but I didn't want to have to deal with another thing. Like if it was safe for me and it was safe for the baby, I didn't want that. Something I did have, I forgot to say this before. When they actually told me it was time to start pushing. We made sure that my call them rescue medications. So the medications that if I needed them because my facial pain became horrific, we made sure those medications were in the room so that there was no delay of, we have to call the pharmacy, we have to get a hold of your doctor. They were literally in the room so that if I said, I need that, they could just boom, boom, hook it up, and we could continue on with giving birth while getting the rescue meds.
That's great.
That's a very smart plan.
Yeah. Let's move on to being mommies and how that has been. I don't want to lead you too much into just, too narrow of a response. So, I mean, I'm going to ask Allie first because Jody, you're on your second, so you have another level of experience. But Allie, how has it been managing? I know you're a wonderful mom, and I know that your son is so adorable that it's just criminal. But how has it been being a mom with facial pain? How have you managed it? And how do you and Danny kind of trade off any differently than before with, responsibilities with your son?
So it was super exciting that my pain right after birth and probably up until he was about 2 months old, I had very, very little pain. I actually, after birth, like all during pregnancy and right after birth, I was on 2 medications. And then by the time he was in those like 8 weeks after he was born, I was able to decrease and get off one of my medications. So I'm now only on 1 medication. So I take that as a win. I would say now my pain has come back to my normal, which is tolerable. I'd be lying to myself if I wasn't petrified that the sleep disruptions would set my face off, because that's a trigger for me to have a funky sleep schedule. But knock on wood, it hasn't been awful. I will never forget, there was one time he was 3 weeks old and it was a Monday morning at 3 a.m. and my face was absolutely horrific. And I was thinking, here we go, here we go, here we go. And I just kind of sat there and I didn't even get my husband. I just kind of sat there and I was like, it's okay. It's okay. I don't know how I got through it because it was awful. And I had a 3-week-old baby in my arms. But yeah, surprisingly, my face is managing pretty well. Yeah, it's a balancing act.
And what about you, Jody? Now with 2 and facial pain on top of that, how are you guys? I'm going to ask you the next question, with having the second one. So now you've got a toddler and you've got a newborn and you've got facial pain. I don't know who's working at home or who's working outside home. I know that you're home with your kids. So how has that been for you?
You know what?
This past year has been crazy for everybody. So, but given that, how has it been for you?
I shouldn't say I'm not on any medications. I do take CBD oil with a very low THC in it. I forgot to mention that I did take that on and off throughout my pregnancy with my son because my pain was to the level that I needed something. So I wanted to mention that medication wise. And then after he was born with the because sleep deprivation does make my pain worse. So I was having the facial pain and the stabbing, just trying to suck it up when he was just a few weeks old and stuff. And motherhood it's challenging no matter if you're in pain or not in pain. For me, it's been, I'm very fortunate because I'm one of 10 children. I've been around little kids my entire life. And so I feel like I have that, at least the experience of being around my nieces and nephews and stuff. So it's very challenging. It's been more challenging for me because for 10 years, I was so debilitated from the pain. I'm sorry.
It's okay. You want me to go to Allie and come back to you?
Yes. Sorry.
It's okay. There's nothing to be sorry about.
I mean, my life is 180-degree change, which is miraculous and amazing, but I almost don't even know how to live this way because my pain from my neck and my face were so debilitating for 12 years that I existed every day. I lost my job. I couldn't work. I could barely socialize. I could barely leave the house for 10 years. So it's amazing, but to learn how to do it almost overnight is very challenging. I'm not going to lie. I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry. I mean, I think it's going to be so helpful for other women and men to hear you talk about that. And that's, that's something that probably a lot of people can relate to. And like you talk about the fear of it coming back and the not knowing how to be, because for you is a really long time. So it's like, it's probably trying to remember almost like a past life for you.
It is. It's very busy with 2 children, so I don't get a chance to think about it much. But I mean, I'm very fortunate that my husband is extremely patient because I basically can take care of the kids, not the house. And so it's amazing. But I also think that for me, it's almost like, not that trigeminal neuralgia is a death sentence, but it's almost like you need to learn how to live again. And
in talking about that, what I hear from both of you is this community that I know exists, but tell me about, I mean, I know the 2 of you are connected, and Sarah, who unfortunately couldn't be with us tonight, is connected with you guys. So tell me about where you've gotten your support other than your family. Where are the moms out there? Where are the moms to be out there with facial pain? And where can we tell everybody else to go and find that support?
I mean, I went through my facial pain association contacts, and I'm like, okay, even when I was thinking about starting a family, I talked to Sarah, and then I remember I talked to Jody when I was thinking about, okay, what's going to happen when I go into labor? What is that going to look like? And it's just, there's not enough out there, and there's not enough research. There's just not, and it's terrifying as a first-time mom for me. Labor's and that whole process is scary to begin with, but then you add facial pain and you have no clue what's going to happen. So I think that's why you have to really rely on your contacts through the FPA. And I mean, maybe that's something we can even look into, getting an FPA, I don't know, moms or pregnancy support group, something going, because you got to have help and support. And Jody, you were just saying you learning to live again. I wouldn't know what to do because I've had facial pain since I was 13 and I've never been in a true remission. So I wouldn't know how to be me, not be me without facial pain, but it would be a different life. I'd have to get to know myself again.
So is there a group? I thought there was some online group. Am I wrong in saying that there's a Facebook group, or there should be a Facebook group, or there should be some other kind of online support group? If not, so you all are just connected, having met through that. And that's not a plug for the FPA, but you have connected through the organization. Is that right?
Yeah, Jody and we were talking about, we met at a conference years ago. So to my knowledge, there's not a support, a Facebook support group page, but I could be missing it.
Well, so for anybody out there, if whether you're seeing this live or you're seeing this afterwards, depending on how this broadcast is going, if you have any interest or feedback, or a resource out there, please comment and share that. And if you have requests, for a support group or for an online group that the FPA could convene for you, or you want to do that yourself and let us know about it so we can share that, then that would be great. Any words of advice, words of hope for someone, a woman with facial pain who is thinking about getting pregnant? I see it a lot, and I do see it on our social media and on the Facebook groups, people asking other people. So what would your advice be to someone who is considering getting pregnant for the first time and is really afraid because of their facial pain? Jody, what would you do? What would you say?
Gosh, what would I say? I would like to say it's amazing. I think the fact that I'm almost completely pain-free is a miracle. So I want to say do it, but I know that the pregnancy hormones and the breastfeeding hormones don't make everyone pain-free. Just make sure you have support. And I'm guilty of not sticking with the support groups online, and I wish I had, because maybe there's, we all need it. I'd say from listening to Allie that make sure that you plan out really well. Fortunately for me, the fact that my pain dissipated with pregnancy is a miracle. And I think, but having a plan is very important, making sure you have those support people and your doctors on board is extremely important.
And Allie, before I ask you to answer that question, I do want to mention you actually do host a support group. It's not specifically for moms or to discuss pregnancy, but you do host a support group. And as well, we have other virtual support groups. So please go to our website and check them out. But if you're interested in joining Allie's, while you give your information about what your advice would be, can you also give information about your support group? I think you just had one last night, didn't you?
Yep.
You're working a lot this week. We got you working double time. So,
so my support group meets one Tuesday night a month at 6:30 Eastern time zone. I believe it's the third Tuesday of every month. I can't really remember, but I'll just say mom brain on that one.
It's a real thing.
My advice to anyone who's looking to start a family, my number one thing would be, I don't know what my number one, do it. Don't be afraid. Don't give up. If that is your dream, if you were me when you were 13 years old saying, oh man, guess I'm not gonna be able to have kids because I have facial pain, don't give in. Fight for what you really want. Come up with a plan. As you probably learned in your facial pain journey, advocate for yourself. The Facial Pain Association has people to help guide you. I'm always available to chat if people want to just run ideas past, but advocate for yourself and come up with a plan, and don't give up on your dreams of starting a family.
Thank you so much, Jody. Thank you so much. I appreciate your honesty and your story and your bravery of being here and being live. It's a scary kind of thing to do for the first time. I really appreciate you agreeing to do this with us. And I appreciate for your kids and your husband of taking care of business while you do this. So I appreciate it. And Allie, you're a rock star. We're so grateful to have you be a part of the Facial Pain Association, be on the board, be a support group leader, be a peer mentor, and a support to others as well. So thank you both, ladies. I really appreciate it. And thank you everyone for joining us. If you could not view this live, you can feel free to send the Facial Pain Association any questions, follow-up messages by contacting info@tna-support.org. You can call us. You can come to our website. All of our contact information is there. Or you can leave a message under this recording and we will keep an eye on it and get back to you. So thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.